Good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon, or some part of the afternoon of the second day of Beyond. For many of you, I imagine you're on the seventh coffee by now, keeping yourselves going through what has been an absolutely fun-filled and really impressive program of activity. And I think this is one of a number of sessions that are running parallel. So congratulations if you've got two screens open. I hope you have. And for those of you that aren't listening in, you're going to miss a fantastic showcase session this afternoon. So there are 4 showcase projects that we're going to be sharing with you, and we're splitting this into two sections. The first half an hour is going to be focused on digital testing, and we've got 2 great projects being presented. First is Born in Bradford, and second is Siemens Keele. Information about both of these is actually on the showcase page. So I'm going to ask Miriam, if she doesn't mind, to put up in the chat box a link through to the main showcase, so that if anybody wants to have a look at what's there, obviously not while people are speaking, but afterwards, if you want to go and have a look at all the projects, not just the ones that we're looking at today, you'll have the opportunity to do that. So the first 2, as I say, are focused on digital testing, and then we're going to go into a discussion on animated worlds. First of all, we've got ONAR and then Munkination. So a couple of moments just on the format, just so that everybody's clear. The plan is for the speakers to speak for 10 to 15 minutes. They've got presentations, all of them, I think. So they're showing and sharing material as well as talking about their projects. And then we're going to allow a bit of time at the end of each of the session for some Q&A. I'll have some of my own. I'm just being provided with a cup of tea by somebody who was in one of the other sessions and is probably going back to the other sessions. Thank you very much, Professor Chitty. So I'm going to start by handing to Peter Ayers from Born in Bradford. And yeah, Peter come on screen brilliantly. I will be leaving imminently. I will hand over to Peter. As I say, if you've got any questions or comments, please fire them up in the chat box. Peter, over to you.
Hi there. So I'm Peter Reyes. I'm from Immersive Networks Collective. What I'm going to do is just run through a little bit about the Born in Bradford project, how we came to be involved in it, what we've made so far, which is a prototype, what we're working on now, the next stages of the project, and what our plans for the future are. So the Born in Bradford project is a longitudinal birth cohort study, and that means it's been following about 13,500 children that were born at the Bradford Royal Infirmary between 2007 and 2010. And the health of the children is being tracked right from pregnancy, pre-birth, through childhood into adult life. The objective of the project is to understand the different influences that shape our lives. The project is a partnership between the Bradford Institute of Health Research, the University of Leeds and Bradford, Leeds Trinity University, the Department for Education, the local authority in Bradford, the Bradford Research School, and the Educational Endowment Foundation. So it's been it's got this enormous diversity of organisations involved, and we're just a very small part of that. How we got involved in it was during a Leeds Cultural Institute Fellowship in Art and Science. The fellowship was specifically to enable artists the freedom to be disruptive in a research context. So what we were doing is exploring data and aesthetics in immersive technologies. Towards the end of that, we were commissioned by the newly formed Centre for Immersive Technologies at Leeds University to engage with this big data set that emerged from the Born in Bradford study. What we developed was the main challenge that we had was that this data set is extremely multidimensional. So that means for every individual involved, there's psychological data, physiological data, social data, socioeconomic data, there's environmental data, so how far people live from green spaces, things like that, and there's genetic data. So the challenge was initially just for this prototype is how can we represent these multiple dimensions in a creative way that people can engage with. What we used was a machine learning technique called TSNE, which reduces these different dimensions into point clouds. So these are the point clouds that we developed, and these are representative of all of the different data types. But a good way of explaining it is that if this was only genetic data, then the little clusters would be families, and you would be closest to your brother and sister and your parents, and the further away in these different clusters would be people who you weren't related to. Now, when you add all of the different dimensions of data to that, then you get a different point cloud, what we've done is create an experience that allows you to explore by changing what different colors mean in this immersive experience. It allows you to explore different meaning in the data set yourself. So the prototype that we developed is accessible on Oculus Rift. And it allows people to fly around inside the data set and change what different colors mean as they explore it. So, like any good prototype, it raised more questions than it answered, and really the sort of anecdotal responses were really positive. But the questions that were coming up were things like, can a single experience enable people to find meaning for both policymakers and participants in research? Can immersive tech enable a deeper understanding of multi-dimensional data, which traditionally people aren't able to engage with in any meaningful way? Can storytelling with data enhance emotional engagement and connection, and do people respond differently when the data that they're exploring is about themselves and their community? And as a result of this project and the people we've been working with, we've started a company, Immersive Networks, to explore some of these questions. The next stage in addressing these questions is to see whether we can specifically make experiences which affect both the efficacy of policy making and affect people's behaviors. So if they understand how their behaviors position them in data, can that actually change their relationship to each other and to their behaviors? So the projects we've got at the moment are with the same enormous data set, are focused on mental health, pride, aspirations and role models, and healthy choices. So that's the Born in Bradford data. We're also sort of expanding this approach of taking data and running it through a narrative development process and facilitating development of immersive stories with different data sets. So we're working with the Global Food and Environment Institute at the University of Leeds to represent their data in a virtual version of an immersive of their research farm. We're working with volcanologists, glaciologists. So we've got funding applications in to do things like explain how glaciers might change in future and help local communities in the Andes understand that. And through the whole of this process, what we're trying to do is codify a toolkit for making these experiences, so that the learning that we're doing at the moment makes it more accessible for artists to work with academics and policymakers on public policy issues, easier for academics to communicate their research in a way that policymakers understand and citizens citizens understand, and for policymakers, give them information in a way that they can discover the sort of the underlying drivers of their policy decisions, and of course enable storytellers to tell these stories that are buried very deep in large data sets. So the toolkit is going to be called Senset once it's done. And what we're really hoping is that it democratizes sort of the creation of immersive experiences and enables people to express the meaning in their data to a greater array of audiences. So obviously we couldn't do this without our fantastic partners at the University of Leeds, the Future Fashion Factory up there, the Bradford Institute for Health Research, the Cultural Institute, and the Centre for Immersive Technologies. This work wouldn't be happening without without them, and of course the people who this data is about, the participants, the sort of 13,500 participants in the Born in Bradford family.
So Peter, thank you.
Thanks.
That was brilliant.
Great. I shall step out.
No, stay.
Oh, shall I stay? Okay.
What you might want to do is stop sharing your screen so that people can see you and me.
There we go.
Question, and my question actually follows that. That's been in the chat box from Sarah Parkin. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can see that, or you might be able to look at it now that you're not presenting. You can breathe and see the potential. So the potential for visualizing product supply chains, in particular around food or fashion. Well, I think that's really interesting, apart from being an interesting question, was that you did mention fashion at the end through the Future Fashion Factory. So is fashion where do you see this going? You talked about democratizing the visualization of data. Is there a potential role in fashion?
I mean, certainly the link to the Future Fashion Factory is that there's a big textile industry in Bradford, and the Future Fashion Factory is based at the University of Leeds. More broadly, I think where I come to this from is a history in working in sustainability consulting, and I wanted to visualize social and environmental dimensions of companies, so that they could be considered alongside financial considerations in the planning of company structure, and I think numbers only tell so much of a story. So when you can get the sort of a really creative expression of for example, a supply chain or a fashion supply chain or a food supply chain, that's going to be when people actually understand where their food comes from and where their fashion comes from. So that's certainly something that we've talked a lot about. It's not something that we currently have funding for, but it's we have a draft presentation that we're actually working on, which is about fashion supply chains and the idea that you should be able to augment, runway fashion with the environmental and social footprints of that fashion.
Okay, that's really clear. That's really clear and really helpful. My question, for what it's worth, was to say, and what about health? As in, you started, your cohort is a fantastic resource. I worked on a project in Bradford about 7 or 8 years ago, and we talked to them there about what a fantastic cohort you've got. It's an extraordinarily rich and diverse sort of body of population in around the Leeds City region area, Leeds and Bradford. Are you going to carry on working with, let's say, I don't know, hospitals in the area and the health, to track? Yeah. Because the idea of tracking that cohort of young people that were born, as you said, between 2007 and 2010, and that extraordinary mix of data, psychological, physiological, environmental, social, genetic, that's a wonderful data set that should inform health. What role you might have in that?
Yes, it is. I mean, I should say that we are a very small part of a very big project, and that project is ongoing. Just expanding specifically on that, the next stage of the project, which uses the Born in Bradford dataset, is actually about making policy making more specific to smaller places. So we're going to be working in Homewood and looking specifically at their data. And we've got these that we're going to have data, sort of, I think 6 different data scientists, each working on a different area with community organizations, using the data that's come out of the Bourne and Bradford study to inform policy. And inform behavior. So the idea is that using this sort of, basically making big data sets smaller and more meaningful, you should be able to have more locally specific policy making, rather than saying across the region this is going to be a health policy that works. It's much more down to the sort of a community of 1,000. It's like what's going to work with these people, and how can we use the data in the Bourne and Bradford data set to inform that policy. And our role in that is simply supporting the data scientists in translating some of the data for a policy audience and for the community audience. Okay,
that's fascinating. Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, but I'd like to follow up that conversation with you, Peter. I'm really interested in what you've just said about Homewood from a policy perspective, working on creative clusters, for example, and trying to understand, that very local policy making in a very local context. I think is really interesting. Yeah. And it may be that Sarah and others might want to finish up with you. So as I said at the beginning, do have a look at the showcase page for all examples. But Peter, I'm going to ask you to leave now. Okay. Thank you very much. Feels like, who was it years ago? He's not the weakest link, but you know what I mean. I've got this power. Anyway, next up, we've got Colin Kelly from Siemens Keele. Colin, if you want to join, fantastic. I'm going to hand over to you. For those that have just arrived, we're halfway through the first half, which is on digital testing. And Colin is now going to provide a presentation on the project you've been working on with Keel University. Colin, off you go.
Thanks, Graham. I'll just share my screen. Great. So I'm here today just to show you and talk a little bit more about the work that we've been doing with Siemens in the Keel campus over the sort of last 6 to 7 months. I change the screen. Okay. We started working with Siemens when they put out a innovation challenge. They had a problem of how can they get people sort of more involved or understand the work they've been doing with Keel campus in terms of how they're helping them reach their goal of becoming a carbon neutral campus. And normally their presentations or their way they would get this information across was quite dry and didn't hit sort of maybe the general public, or when they were talking to councillors or even the Prime Minister, they felt they needed something that helped bring this information to life. So they set out this innovation challenge, which we answered, and we were lucky enough to win the pitch and start working with them. We pitched them a augmented reality twin of Keel campus. So the idea here was we wanted the ability to augment the campus sort of anywhere in the world so that they could do a demonstration anywhere. So again, it was very much on equity, so that it was again a carbon zero way of being able to augment this anywhere in the world without people having to travel to Keel, so they could demonstrate this anywhere. And still, people could still get an understanding of the environment, of the richness of the Keel University, along with their heritage. So we set this sort of pitch back to Keel and to Siemens and said, wouldn't it be really cool if we did this? And essentially sort of had the ability to pick your campus up and project it anywhere in the world. So from that, we won the pitch. We then obviously had to make it work, which was somewhat of a challenge. When we looked at the Keel campus, if we looked at sort of, say, drone flights over it, the perimeter was over 3 miles, and it was an area of, sort of half a square mile, which was quite a lot of ground to cover for a demonstrator piece. So after talking it over with sort of Siemens and Keel's, what we did is we took 6 or 7 key locations and brought them into a narrower scope, so we could really understand whether this technology would answer that question. We didn't want to develop it too far at this stage, only to find that people didn't accept it. So we identified these 7 key buildings. We sent the team out, the drone team out, the drone team and people on the ground. And I think each building we took around about maybe 1,000, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 pictures of each building. So we really wanted to capture the essence of the building. It was not to be used as a a full reference, if you like, for if you were doing any sort of work to it or any architectural piece. It was really just to capture their variety of buildings, so that if you went to Keel, you would be potentially recognize it. So the drones went out and the guys went out on the ground to take the reference pictures. And then the teams back in the studio produced a lower end sort of models of the objects based on that information from the photogrammetry information we got. So we were able to really scale the buildings down without losing an essence of them, so that we would work in the augmented reality space. So that was kind of one of the key challenges, was, well, how can we augment it? How can we build a digital twin? The next message was, well, now that we've got to them, how do we tie the data in? So we spent a lot of time working with Siemens in terms of what their panels fed back, what information was relevant at a building level, what information was relevant at a campus level, and how we could access that in real time inside the AR environment. So we used a technique very similar to a game engine. This was obviously built in a game engine, but we used techniques that we could determine how far away the iPad was from an actual building. And if you were looking at it, we would highlight it or make it glow to give you the incentive that if you move closer to it, it would actually give you some information or give you something that was relevant. It was almost like a hint to sort of move closer to that building. And as you moved closer to it, these identified 3 key things that we felt was relevant on the building at that time when you were looking at just at that level. So you could go and look at this building, look at another building, and these sort of, if you like, flags of data would appear. If you wanted more information on that building, so for argument's sake, there was a red flag on there, so you're like, well, what's wrong with this building, or why isn't it performing as efficiently as it should? You were able to sort of then pull up a whole panel within the AR environment, which would give you more information or a 24-hour previous snapshot of what happened to the building over that time. And again, we spent quite a little bit of time with Siemens in terms of, well, how complicated do these graphs need to be? They're only kind of brought up if you need that extra information pulled from. How can we quantify that? So again, there's still another big piece of work that goes on that, but this was just to get this sort of off the ground. So when it was actually projected on the table, this is what it looked like. So the idea was here you could drop it. We picked a round shape because we give them the ability to scale it up and rotate it. So you could literally place this on a tabletop, or if you had the space, you could take a whole room and actually walk around with your iPad on the campus and feel like you were sort of in that space. So I will show you a quick video of how it came out. Sorry, that's my phone. So hopefully that's playing all right for you guys. So just a quick on what's next. Built on the first demonstrator, Keel and Siemens have been sort of very, very responsive in it. Everyone that they showed it has wanted to expand on it. So now we're actually looking at how we do a full campus view. How in the augmented reality space, when it's run on mobile devices, can it cope with a bigger view rather than just 7 buildings? How can we take it campus wide? So after doing quite a bit of research, we're putting in a lot of technology into the AR space, which is kind of a level of detail. If any of you guys have ever played a car racing game, the objects farther away are a lot less detailed than the objects near you. So because we can control where or know where the camera's looking at its distance, we can incorporate that technology. So it enables us to really do sort of things that you see on this slide, where a low polygon count, say 316 polygons, a mid 730, and the ones that are actually used when you get really close to it, you can see the jump to nearly 20,000. So by being able to sort of incorporate some of the technology used in car simulation games, we're able to then do a full campus level in augmented reality at sort of mobile. That leads us on to the big vision of this particular project and work that we're still in talks with Siemens in, is giving people the ability to fully immerse themselves in this space. So rather than it just purely being a demonstrator, the idea is it will start to be perform part of their toolkit in terms of their panels. And in effect, you'll be able to create almost like a carbon zero war room where you put on your VR headset and you can point to anywhere in the world or anywhere in the country and pull up stats on its carbon emissions. You could look at its population. You can place virtual objects in that space and see the impact of that. And because it's in a VR space, you can then share it with anybody in the world and collaborate that way. Or essentially, you just pick up the VR headset and take it somewhere else. You're not having to take all that war room and all that data with you. It's kind of sort of portable and with you. So that kind of gives you a sense of what we're trying to do with augmented reality and virtual reality, and combine it with data so that it becomes more of a everyday tool rather than it just necessarily being something that's used for marketing or traditionally entertainment. And that's me. That ends my presentation.
Great, Colin, thank you very much. Do you want to stop sharing your screen just for a moment? Just stay on screen. We've got a minute or two. I mean, really interesting. I was really struck by your notion of a carbon zero war room, that notion that we can be saving the planet while we're bombing people. But anyway, I know that isn't what you intended. But I thought what was really striking about what you showed was the way in which we use different creative to deal with very, very important, in this case, construction tasks or energy conservation and resource efficiency tasks, in particular gaming. I mean, I think the image of, the headsets and the handsets was really interesting. Do you want to tell? I mean, I'd be interested to know who the team was that were involved in pulling the project together, and what extent you had gamers or used people with experience of gaming in there.
Essentially, it was quite a small team because it was an innovation challenge at the time. The timings were quite tight and their budget was quite constrained. We did set up a team with Siemens and with.
I don't think it should be considered kind of dirty to plan for
the background.
That's next door, is it?
No, that's not me.
This is a message to Miriam or anybody. I can hear people talking in the background, and I don't think it's certainly not in my room, and it's
not in my room.
It sounds like it's a voice, very familiar Sam Michel voice I can hear.
Key moments rather than narrative.
Ah, or maybe it was a pre-recording.
Don't mention storyboarding. So
let's come back. I can just talk over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies to everyone if you can hear this.
A kind of top line.
So we pulled together we had someone who looked after their data from Siemens. So there was the data team there. They had their energy efficiency
created is
and they had Keel had obviously their team members involved in the process, and so we worked with them to establish what we could and couldn't do inside the Keel environment, and what data was accessible to us. And then when we test every piece, it went out to key testers in their environment. So they tested with a certain amount of students. Keel tested with a certain amount of their Siemens tested with a certain amount of their employees. So it was kind of almost that kind of like skunk works, where things was very, very quickly turned around and moved in to bring the demonstrator together. As we move into phase 2, that's when the project gets longer and gets a little bit more complicated, and the team gets bigger essentially at that point.
Okay, all right, that's good. I've just established it was me. That I had the main stage tab open, so you were hearing, in fact, Ham's colleague Annette Meese, who's on the main stage. So let's leave it there. We're out of time. Colin, thank you very much. That was really interesting. If anybody's got any questions, put them up in the chat box. I'll follow up with Colin separately. Colin, I'm going to ask you to move left, move right. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to the second half of this showcase session, which is going to be focused on animated worlds. So first of all, we're going to hear from Chris Kelly from ONAR, and then from Ham, we're going to hear about Munkination from Ham. So we're going to start with Chris. I'm going to move sideways and let Chris take the stage. Chris, over to you.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us here. I was going to chat through one of our projects in studio that ONAR is kind of a bit of a transmedia project for us, in the sense that it started as a game, and then as we started building tools for the game, it started influencing other parts of the animation studio. So who am I? ONAR, what is it? I run a small animation studio, visual effects studio in Belfast called Enter Yes, and we do the majority of visual effects on the features that happen in Belfast. And we've worked on feature films from Looper right through, like Hollywood features like Looper, right through to the whole production for something like Ordinary Love or those kind of 4 million plus kind of indie productions. So that's our sort of bread and butter in the studio. And while we're doing that, we also, being a creative kind of studio, develop our own content. And that started with me developing a short film, short animation a few years ago called Here to Fall. And I was nominated, and it was nominated for a Film BAFTA. So that was our first sort of kind of pat in the back. You know, we didn't win it, but it definitely gave us the feeling that we could create our own content and start kind of having those conversations. But one of the things that we kind of noticed that when we started that journey was that we needed, being in Belfast, to kind of utilize the funding partners that are around the place, like Future Screens, NI Screen, Invest in I, and stuff, super helpful. And then the talent pool there is of a certain scale and size. And we noticed very quickly that in order to do the things that we wanted to do, we needed to start looking at, to a certain extent, virtual production. This was way before The Mandalorian and the current discussions of kind of virtual production in that way, but really looking at ways of automating part of the process and really allowing a smaller kind of team to be able to create something, say, like a animated TV series at a certain level within a certain kind of medium, which I know has been done many times before in Belfast within certain mediums, but within the space that we're trying to do ONAR in, I think we really rely on kind of advances in technology and kind of making use of those. So I'll give you a short snippet of ONAR and share my screen to kind of show you what I mean about the production. We have a look at the trailer to give you an idea. So if I stop the video, that's ONAR, and that's our initial kind of concept or idea or sort of style teaser. And in order to create that within a number of weeks, it really was off the back of us creating a lot of interesting pieces of technology and being able to kind of deploy in various systems in order for us to both raise funds for the production, but at the same time for us to create tools that were used on service projects, which I can show you more of in a minute, that kind of feed back into our kind of own IP. So if we have a look at the pipeline for ONAR, it's very much, as it stands, it's very much like this. We start off with script. We've got a collaboration with the Out of Orbit, because as you know, a lot of the industry works in the networks like that, and who you can get the script in front of and who's going to back the project. So that part we've collaborated with Out of Orbit, friends of ours that we've collaborated with for years, and we got to the BAFTAs and then they beat us by getting to the Oscars. So we're kind of all feel competitive and kind of push each other to do new things. Within the space, we obviously created the proprietary kind of virtual production tools and processes. Even if I think back to the earliest kind of stuff that we were doing on Here to Fall, we were taking Bluetooth mice, and we were using Bluetooth mice to be able to move a camera to give a kind of feel and sensation that the camera was held by a DOP. This was way long before the Oculus Rift and stuff, but we understood in those early days that we wanted to bring a certain kind of sensibility or certain kind of like magic to the productions by kind of allowing people to hold things and look through things and find shots and kind of lean on things that we understood in the film industry to try and bring them over into the type of animation that we were trying to do. Then obviously we were one of the first Kickstarters, of the first 7,000 to back the Oculus Rift. So we got straight into that early on. And I think that's where for me, ONAR, which has been around in various forms for a while now, is sort of been this transmedia project, because it, in a way, allows us to step into the space. The VR kind of did that for us. It not only were we moving a Bluetooth mouse about, but we were able to kind of step into the shot. So I can show you some of the early attempts at doing that, or probably the most recent attempt actually will show VR camera, where we're able to kind of create that space, get in, and then act like a DOP and find the shot. That sort of, for us, it meant that the pool of animation talent that we had in Belfast, which is amazing, was then became slightly bigger, because we could reach outside that and we could start saying, okay, can we get the DOPs that are on productions to join our animation team that have no skills in animation, are able to go in, find the shot, and make that happen. But we know that can be done by big productions, and it's been done for years with Zemeckis and stuff, and the guys at Atomic Fiction who we work with on Looper and stuff. So it's not new technology, but where it's sort of now accessible is, if I show you another video, was like, this is a really crude recording of me during COVID, just doing an example of a shot in my little office. If I can find it here, flow. So you can see exactly what I mean here. You've got me up on the left-hand corner holding the Oculus, having a look through, and then recording the action. And you just get so much more of a real kind of feel to that. Other parts of the production and the pipeline were things like motion capture. This we didn't develop. We just purchased Rococo suits and then started developing tools that spoke to the Rococo suits. So you got this kind of lower fi motion capture. So somebody can jump in, animate the character, so that then again opens that kind of job pull up to people that are in theater and saying, okay, well, let's get motion capture actors in, and that becomes something that can be done at a kind of budget level and scale that suit our studio. From there, we moved on to okay, we've got body movement, we've got the DOP, and now we need to think about faces and how do we get facial capture. So again, with that, we looked at the idea of using things like open pose and learning from that in order to develop our own little markerless motion capture. So in ONAR, we're able to get somebody's face, record it very quickly, and then, like, for example, when I demoed it on the future screen stuff, we're able to do a whole shot and turn it around in about 30 minutes. And having loads of experience of being on feature films and being VFX producer and stuff on it, that's a good speed to be able to record something, get it deployed, and then on the system. Like I think that really makes a project like ONAR possible from the point of view of potentially being a TV series or whatever with multiple seasons. It becomes something that's much more doable in that sense. So to give an example of that shot, and I'm trying to keep an eye on my time here, because please tell me if I run over, but basically an example of that would be, here was the future screen ones, 30 minutes, a quick bit of sound design dropped on, a few assets dropped in, but to put somebody in a suit, record their face, and have it both on the Nintendo Switch, in VR, and ready for broadcast deployment. I think 30 minutes is pretty quick. So one of the other things that we did on that production was we partnered with and got supported by NVIDIA with graphics cards and being able to kind of process this stuff quickly and then render it in real time using ARTX and real-time ray tracing, which gave it a kind of fidelity that can work with broadcast. And then other kind of parts of machine learning that we had learned on other kind of productions like Kings of Shumava, where we're able to stylize the animation using the image style transfer to take some of the CG look out. And then on top of that as well, upscaling 2K footage to 4K or 8K. It all becomes something that's so much more kind of achievable within a kind of a smaller budget. So for us, it was kind of it was a pleasure to be kind of asked to chat at this and talk through some of the things that sort of influence our studio. And I'm kind of super happy to ask or answer any questions about the process. But in a way, it really comes down to that core idea and script. And then we wanted to create a tool set that would allow us to kind of confidently know, look, we can make that, and we can come up with an idea and make it, regardless of what it's in or who it's for.
Chris, that's fantastic. 15 minutes doesn't do justice to what you've been through, which was just amazing, I thought. And, you know, the films you chose were really good. We've got one particular question from Harvey Heyman, which we'll pick up first. And I've got one if there's time.
Yeah, cool.
It was the pipeline. And I don't know about Harvey, like me, you're obsessed with the pipeline that's actually behind your head. But you talked about the pipeline. So Harvey's question is, what technologies are your proprietary production pipeline tools built in? And what would you recommend to a studio wanting to set up in a similar way?
Well, that's a really kind of cool, interesting question, because everybody kind of blurs the lines of what they are in that sense. And for me, being very specific, they're built in Unity. And then on the kind of the maximum level of kind of coding skills that we have is within C#. So basically, we built little applications and tools that we export from Unity that allow us to take, for example, a video, recognize parts of the video, and then export an FBX with targets that then go into any application, whether it's Maya or Blender, to animate the face. So the proprietary tools that I'm talking about are generally built in Unity with C#. So to give you an example of the way we approached the face was that it was just simple math of if this part of your mouth gets closer to the eye, but then is also going in that direction, then it's most likely a smile. So play a blend shape of a smile. So some of these based on the kind of facts, kind of facial animation stuff, these sort of pre-baked blend shapes were within one model. Another thing that we didn't show that we've done a ton of times in visual effects was kind of face scanning. So things like scanning somebody's face beforehand and then being able to retarget that. We have used other bits of open source software. There's a great Swiss one called Instameshes that you're able to retopologize that kind of scanned face and then pop it onto a model very, very quickly. So I definitely, there is smoke and mirrors in the industry in that sense. There's some of the stuff like Rococo Instameshes that we haven't built, and then we've stitched them together with processes within Unity. Other options could be for virtual production, and that end of things could be Unreal. But we didn't have the skill set when we started off in that, and it wasn't really a thing when we started at that journey as well. Hopefully that answers the question.
Chris, yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
I'm saying we're out of time, but I'm going to say thank you. But before you go, just to reminder to anyone else, if you've got any questions, please use the chat box to put your questions in. And Chris, I'm sure you'll be happy to take any questions either in the chat or separately via email, because I think there was loads in there. It was really interesting. And I'd recommend, again, have a look at the Beyond website. Go on and check out ONAR with more information on what Chris presented. So that was excellent. Thank you, Chris. Okay.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to go. Bye.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chris. Okay, so next up is Ham the illustrator, who's going to provide us with, I think, some audio and some video clips from Munkination with colleagues at the Royal Opera House. So over to you, Ham, to take us through your presentation.
Hello, my beautiful people. My name's Ham the illustrator. I am the originator and lead artist and music producer on Munkination, which is an immersive trap opera about climate change that I've been building with Visualize and the Royal Opera House. I haven't prepared an official presentation because I really wanted to leave this informal. I wanted this to be a big shout out to kind of my team and everyone that's been here. I wanted to just share with you guys what we've kept secret and what we've kept behind the scenes. To give you guys a quick rundown before I jump into the good stuff, I just want to tell you a bit more about what Munkination is for those that haven't heard of it before. Munkination is a project that started about a year ago, and it was an idea that we had to create the world's first kind of trap opera VR immersive theater experience. Essentially, you'd walk into a world through your VR headset, and it would be the future. So we say the year 2500. After climate change has wiped out most of humanity, there's been wars, there's been famine, and we've absolutely destroyed all of our natural resources, right? And it was about allowing you to go into that world, into this kind of apocalyptic world, and there was like a secret tribe or a native tribe that survived, and they wore these robotic monkey masks, and they survived through the toxic gases in those times. And then they had the message that they wanted to tell you as the viewer in this VR experience to carry back to 2020 so that you could save the world and become part of the battle against climate change. So this all began when I was 14 years old and I was in boarding school in South Africa, and I drew out this kind of the initial concepts of Munkination. And then fast forward about 10 years later, and I present this to the Royal Opera House, and they decide, cool, let's try and make this happen. So the stuff I'm about to show you today is a combination of different things that we've been working on. I have to say a very, very, very big thank you and a big shout out to the Royal Opera House, who've been helping me build this for all of this time and have been so instrumental in developing this project. We were shortlisted to go to Copenhagen Labs in the CPH Labs in Copenhagen for an accelerator program. We won the Creative XR program, and we've been developing more work with them. We were meant to go out to South by Southwest this year, and a week before my show, performing with an opera singer in Texas, like coronavirus hits and everything cancels, and I've got to fly back to England. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. But Munkination has gone bigger than anyone could have ever imagined, and especially me, like this 14-year-old's dream in South Africa. I was like, no ways this is ever going to happen. But now I kind of look at everything we've done over the last year, and I can't believe it's just only been a year. And like, I can't help but cry sometimes, because I really hope one day this thing will see the life that it deserves, and that it will get people talking about climate change. I always said that I created Munkination because I really feel like climate change are the White Walkers, Game of Thrones speaking. They're the White Walkers, and we just refuse to acknowledge the elephant in the room. And we have small groups like Extinction Rebellion and Greenpeace that are fighting to do their bits. But like, the truth is, like, in my community as a black man in London, but also in loads of ethnic communities, people don't talk about climate change, and groups like Extinction Rebellion can feel like, you know, like another people's problem, but not their problem. And I always felt like the problem in why we're not getting the masses to convert is not because the information isn't out there, it's because it's not being told in stories. So without further ado, before I jump into anything more, I want to play to you guys one of the first audio I ever made for this project. It's called Steezex. It's a concept track of mixing trap and opera, and it's the first of its kind. And the Royal Opera House were kind enough to get opera singers to come into a music studio with me. And I just basically said freestyle. And then they looked at me and they were like, what does freestyle, like, what is freestyling? We've never freestyled ever in our lives. Like, we always read off sheet music. And I was like, listen, I don't have any sheet music. You're just gonna listen to the 808s and freestyle. And we made Steezex. So I hope you guys enjoy. And also let me know if you guys can hear me. If anything's going wrong, type it in the comments. I'm reading and I'm gonna be part of this, but let's do this. Steezex. Ooh, all right, let's go.
There's a little song that we sing in our movement down in the South. I don't know if you could.
You might want to put on your headphones for this if you don't already.
We shall overcome.
You're now listening to the Sounds of Podcast.
I'm going to stop it over there. And yes, so I played you guys some of the audio. I always start with that introduction. It's always the way that I begin all my presentations with Munkination, because I feel like the audio and the journey for why the Royal Opera House decided to partner with me is because of the idea of what would happen if we could mix the traditional sounds of opera with contemporary trap music, which is like, you know, what I produce. And I feel like in this project, it was about combining different elements, different cultures, different people to tell a story of our shared future. So I can see in the comments people want to see the images and they want to see some visuals. So let's not waste any time, and I'll jump straight into it. I'm still getting used to how to do this Google sharing thing, but if I go here and share this audio, cool. Right, so I'll take you guys right to the top. So this explains a lot more about the project. If you guys want to see more about this, head over to munkination.com. You guys can read through everything here, but this is basically how we planned everything. Munkination has got all the details on where we got to, everyone involved, but this is the main section I wanted to play for you guys to give you guys a little taste.
We are the Usam, the last of humanity on Earth. Our ancestors lived in equilibrium with nature. We journey this wasteland in search of a new future. Not our future, no. It's too late for us. Yours. Grown from the roots of a changed past. You are that change.
Right, so as you guys can tell, listen, I'm leaving this open-ended. This is me hanging out with my 39, 40 friends. So as I'm playing you guys stuff, if you guys have questions, if you guys are like, bro, what are you even showing me? What is that? Just type it in the comment section and I'll answer everything you guys are asking me while I'm doing this, right? Thank you, Abby. Thanks for everyone in the comment section. Is this still in development? Yes, it very much is. To tell you exactly where we are in timeline-wise, what we've just finished handing over through the Creative XR program, right? So we were selected to be part of the program. It was been about I think 3-4 months of development. We had really short turnover time, and we needed to create something with the grant that they gave us. And we partnered with a tech and production company called Visualize that basically helped. Together we made an augmented reality app that exists on your phone. And I wanted to show you that because it's kind of like an intro version of what it is. And the app is basically this you open it up, it's going to be available for iPhones and Androids, and you open it up and it basically like Pokemon Go, you open it through the camera or through the app, and it opens up your phone camera and you can look anywhere in your room. Now, as you're looking through your room, you can basically select the rune and put it on the floor, and then it opens up a portal in augmented reality. So it opens up a portal in your real reality, and as it opens up, you're asked to put on your headphones. You then put on your headphones, and then once you put on your headphones, the audio starts, and then you're invited to walk through the portal into the world of Munkination, which was a bit of the visuals you've seen there. When you go down the portal, we basically designed it so that each different island, as you will, is basically a different representation of the planet falling apart. So on the first island, you might have the polar ice caps melting, and on the second one, you'd have forest fires, like the Amazon forest fires, or those that happen in Australia. Then you go further down, and then you have bombs, and it just kind of is humanity descending into chaos as the years roll on, and as we reach the end of humanity. At the bottom, you then meet the tribe, which are the Usan, which are our tribe, our tribe inspired by my ancestors in Namibia, called the Khoisan, and they're basically this tribe that, as I said earlier, survived all of this chaos and all of the destruction of humanity. I think I've given you a bit of a preamble, and I really want to show you a kind of a walkthrough, because I could speak about this all day long, but it doesn't help for me to just speak about whole experience when I want you to taste it. And the latest versions, I don't even know if I'm allowed to show you guys this stuff, to be honest, but I will, because I do what I want. Hey, Graham.
No, go for it. I'm encouraging you to keep going. Keep going.
Oh, sweet. Let me know when I hit 15 minutes. Yeah,
I'm
not going to be over time. All right. So I'm going to leave you, like, I want you guys to be patient with this, right? Because this is one of the really, really early kind of demos of when we were making the app. And it was paired with one of the earlier versions of the audio. Trust me, where it is now and what it looks like now is crazy. We got new opera singers in. We worked with librettists and composers. We've worked with really special visual designers to create the Augmented Reality App, and Visualize has done an incredible job. And the app as it stands now is not what I'm about to show you, but it's something that I look so forward to sharing with you guys in the world. But for now, you guys will get an exclusive preview at one of our earlier versions of the project as we were in development.
Areas of Australia have declared a state of emergency as bushfires bring a catastrophic threat to heavily populated
I can't be hopeful about the future.
I don't understand why nobody's heading about. We, the first generation society, is destroying our planet, and the last one that can do anything about it.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. Getting a bit gassed. And thank you, Ane. I'm sorry that the playback was stuttering a bit. But the audio, and you guys, if I tell you that audio is nothing compared to what the audio sounds like now, like, I cannot wait for you guys to see this. But listen, I just wanted to say thank you guys. And thank you for the questions. Like, honestly, let me answer some of them now while I'm here. But in Audra, like, you're right. It's for me, since I started this I've even got my original sketches, that I drew. And I was in the military boarding school in South Africa, and I just was drawing these on like scrap pieces of paper. And I was fed up with the world. I was just fed up with how everyone we took from the planet, and we had no regard for anything or anything else. And then that scene in The Matrix where Agent Smith is torturing Morpheus, and he basically compares humanity to a virus. Like, that scene just was, as a kid, it just changed my entire life. And I just felt like we have to change this narrative that we have as human beings. And even though I was 14 and 15 at the time that I created this, I just felt like I needed to make a comic book or a story that would show people what would happen if we didn't care and we didn't do anything. And then that's how Munkination came. So it's like, to look at it now and to look at it as this thing coming to life, like, I feel so humbled. But again, like, I can't, like, none of these dreams would have come true if it weren't for the Royal Opera House, for Audience Labs, for two specific people like Sam King and Annette Mies. Like, they've been like my fairy godmothers, and they've helped me throughout this journey. We've won so many awards and worked with so many incredible people, from sound designers to writers to and we've traveled, and I never thought any of this would ever be possible. But like, life has shown me otherwise, and I feel so humbled to be able to create this and to be able to bring this child's dream to reality. And yeah, so like, listen, it's very humbling. And Sarah, your question is, opera still has a lot of associations with the class. Do you think this can work to break down those barriers? And amazing to see how this came to life. You know what? That's, I think, exactly why the Royal Opera House chose to create this project. Audience Labs is this super rogue, amazing department within the Royal Opera House, right? And Audience Labs' job is about trying to retell, like trying to find the opera house, which is traditionally a very exclusive institution for a particular type of people. But the opera house want to expand and they want to figure out how to reach new markets. So Audience Labs was their opportunity to explore those paths. And Audience Labs were allowed to use the umbrella of the Royal Opera House, but really invest and work into some incredible projects. And Munkination was one of them. So I will say that I think Munkination was chosen to figure out how do we bridge the gap between opera and young people, because young people, like, opera does have elements that everyone loves. We love the epicness, we love the cool singers and the big and the greatness of it. So can we mix this with something cool? And the Royal Opera House were interested in immersive stories, so stories in virtual reality and augmented reality. So they brought a bunch of us creatives, and a bunch of us from the Opera House, put us into a workshop and said, now, this is what AR and VR is. Can you combine opera, immersive storytelling, and coolness, and come up with your own projects? And the one I pitched was Munkination, and then the rest is what you guys have seen today. So yes, I do think we can break down those barriers. We just have to tell really, really amazing projects. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Chris. We've got I don't want to pronounce your name wrong, but we've got David Hall Williams is saying, this is really inspirational work. There are some interesting explorations into AR and opera happening across the globe at the moment, like yours, Queensland Opera and UTO. Do you see worth in a single platform which AR opera content creators can contribute to? It's an interesting question. I think that's might be too specific a niche in my opinion, because it's like, think about it, it's AR opera content creators. I don't know how big and diverse the community of opera augmented reality viewers and developers and creators are, but I feel like a platform in general where creators who make augmented reality experiences or VR experiences, when you go into Oculus and you go into the stores, you have a whole world of VR experiences you can get to, but we don't really have kind of like an app store for AR experiences. And I think opera should just be, I don't know, man, maybe having an opera specific one is the one, but I'm not someone that ever engaged with opera content before this project. And I'll be honest with you guys, like, I didn't really know much about opera. It was just like some like old lady that could sing really high notes, and it was amazing and just like was the craziest thing you ever heard. That's all I knew about opera. So I think that the problem is that opera is already really closed. So I encourage anyone that wants to work in opera, it shouldn't be like just an opera thing, maybe theater, but I think it's about just the stories that are being told, no matter what the platform. So if it's in AR and it's a cool enough story, there should be a shared platform that can kind of allow people to showcase even their works in development, I think that would be an amazing idea, but I discourage it from just me being exclusive to just opera. How will your app be distributed and when? That question is, I honestly have no idea just yet. That's not a question.
Answer another one. Where are you going next? So if you can answer Arne's question, how is your app going to be distributed? When? And what are you going to do next? Because I think you've thrilled everyone with Munkination.
Thanks, man.
Big project. Tell us about that, and then we're going to have to wind up.
No worries. I like how is it going to be distributed and when? Thanks, by the way, Graham. I really appreciate it. I don't know when it's going to be distributed. We've just handed over the Creative XR project, which this week is going to pitching for further investment. And we've done trailers and we've reached out to investors. So right now we're looking to expand the project and take it into its new chapters, and we'll see for people that are asking what's going to happen to Munkination next. It's just beginning. Like, it's crazy to say that. Like, I've just been approached. My chapter at the Royal Opera House and with Visualize might continue. We might go on to do great things, but also other opportunities, and other people have reached out to take Munkination in other directions. So I'll just say, I'm not sure yet, but the future is super promising and super exciting. And I would love for you all to be a part of it. Like, if you guys would like to stay in touch with Munkination and want to know where you can find everything, head over to munkination.com. And at the bottom, there's a little contact sheet, and you can just type in your details and we'll send out bulletins to let all of you guys know what's happening. You can also find us on Instagram at Munkination, or me at Ham the Illustrator. Graham, I did it. I'm done.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Round of applause from me, and I'm sure from everybody else watching and listening. You've been great. Fantastic. Thank you to all of the presenters this afternoon for really excellent presentations. Go to the Beyond website to have a look at the showcase to find out more, and stay tuned for the rest of the Beyond conference, which is exhausting me. I don't know about anyone else. Ham, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say one more thing. Thank you. Like, this is I just wanted to say thank you to Beyond, to you, Graham, and to everyone whose time you guys came today. I always have to say thank you to everyone that takes the time to watch any of our presentations. It means the world, and to Beyond for inviting me. My most gratitude. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Thank you, everyone. As I say, this session is now finishing. So thanks for your time. See you on the other side.